My name is Jim Franks. I am one of the pastors at my church here in Northeast Ohio. I get the opportunity every week to counsel 15 to 20 people or so through issues like anxiety, trauma recovery, addiction issues, and lots more. It seems like regardless of what each person's problems are, one of the primary symptoms that they report is intrusive thoughts. Those would be things like tempting thoughts, deceptive thoughts, accusatory thoughts. All of these intrusive thoughts seem to be either negative or they are tempting the person to do actions that are destructive. I've teamed up with some very close friends of mine to create a video program that takes people through a process of personal development that includes inner healing from past wounds, learning to take back control over our thoughts, eliminating strongholds in our lives through the exercise of the spiritual disciplines, enjoying relational health, and leaning into the calling that God has placed on our lives. One of the basic tenets of that program is the concept of taking our thoughts captive. We see this principle in the book of 2 Corinthians chapter 10, verse 5. This strategy is particularly effective as we learn to take back control over our thoughts. Now, I've heard lots of people refer to this practice, but haven't heard a whole lot of people say, like, this is actually how you do it. I'd like to suggest one way for you to do that, one strategy. And I believe this strategy comes in steps. 4 steps that I'd like to share with you. Number 1, I identify the intrusive thoughts that are not from God that I want to get rid of. Number 2, I choose to acknowledge that I don't want to give these thoughts a place to land in my mind, because these thoughts are like dandelions. One thought gets planted, and then that thought will begin to grow. It doesn't take long for that thought to go to seed, and then that thought just seems to spread, and all kinds of other thoughts will get planted in my mind and then start to spring up. Number 3, the next step would be I pray, I take this thought captive, and I make this thought obedient to Christ, which means you refuse to allow it a place to stay and you tell it to leave your mind. And then the 4th step is when the thought tries to enter back in, you repeat these steps and refuse to allow the thought a place to stay. But I can't stop the thoughts from entering my mind. Where we are daily choosing to put our minds will oftentimes determine what kinds of thoughts actually come into our minds. If I am regularly reading the truth of Scripture, if I am choosing to live a life of worship to God, if I am regularly choosing to determine how to serve those around me in love, my mind will naturally be dwelling on God's mind, on the things that God thinks. We see this principle found in the book of Colossians chapter 3, verses 1 through 3, where the author says to put our minds and our hearts on things above, not on things of this earth. Because when we put our minds on the things of earth, that's when the intrusive thoughts really start to enter in. Now, this is not a passive thing. We are choosing where to put our mind because this is an intentional decision. We can't help that some thoughts come in. We can't help that. Some are they're just going to happen. I do get to choose whether the thought stays or not, and I choose what I do with that thought when it does enter in. As an example, we can't help if a beautiful woman or a handsome man walks in front of us and we are married to not to that person. We choose whether our attention is grabbed by that person and our eyes follow, and then we start to allow things into our mind that could cause a separation between me and my spouse. We determine where our mind goes in that situation. And that's what I'm talking about here. Disciplining our thoughts is so important. We all have the power to decide what we will do with the thoughts that enter in. So, when an intrusive thought comes and enters, I choose to respond by saying, nope, I take that thought captive. I make that thought obedient to Christ. So get out of my mind. And if it tries to come back in, nope, I take that thought captive. I make that thought obedient to Christ. And I just keep over and over and over. Nope, I refuse this thought. I refuse this thought. I refuse this thought. And in time, I will begin to develop that. It's almost like this internal discipline where I just don't allow it to stay because I am intentionally refusing to allow that thought a place to stay in my mind. Now, there's far more to this discipline than I can put in this one video. If you are interested, we would love to have you join us on a journey that we have all taken and we continue to take daily. If you are ready to start a process that we hope will change your life like it changed ours, then get registered to start the journey, and we'll look forward to hearing what God is doing through your time with us. So if you're ready, enjoy the journey.